slide has been uploaded, my presentation. So I would be starting the session now. In fact, to open up, I think I should thank IEMP for coming up with this novel idea of starting the series of webinars so that our members really get tuned to today's international standards. I won't say Indian standards, I'm very much particularly speaking about international standards. With more emphasis on Germany, with 95 to 98% of the companies having gone into ISO 50,000 certification. I think I'll take off my video so that it will be more visible, more audible, clear. Okay, I should also thank ASHRAE Chandigarh chapter who initiated our webinar series and successfully hosted the first one with a whooping record registration of 580 members. And the response was also quite good. We had a lot of positive feedbacks. We thought we should again go ahead and then discuss at length on each of the topics, each of the supporting standards. Now, the main objective of this is going to be shown in the coming slides. As you all know, we had a small survey and people expressed various views. Considering that, we have fixed Saturday evening as a day, as a time slot for all of us to meet together. Now, off late, we also had, in fact, it's not off late, we already had an MOU with ASHRAE, which I was not aware. I'm sorry, I was not aware of the MOU IIMP had signed with ASHRAE, and they too have now joined, and together we are going to be organizing the series of webinars in the forthcoming days. In addition to this, there are few more agencies, associations who have volunteered to come and join us, and we are waiting for their written approval. Once we get a written approval, they too will be joining, and we expect to stream much better in the coming days. Well, the presentation of today's thing is going to be made by me, Mallikarjun Kamlayal. I, as in the capacity of chairman, seminars and events committees, have initiated all these discussions. I hope things would be much better and in line with what you people expect out of this particular time, valuable time that you are spending with us. Now, as discussed earlier, I said we would be focusing on each of the supporting standards. So, to take up from here, I thought we will discuss more about ISO 50002 in particular, which gives us a broad, review of how the energy audit is supposed to be spread across. Now, before we pass on to ISO 50002, I would insist upon exploring what ISO 19011 is talking about, because it has laid out a very specific and very clear instructions or the guidelines as to what we, each of us, should be knowing. See, apart from these two standards, apart from ISO 19001, in the subsequent days, I would be focusing on ISO 55000 2014, which is at the bottommost part of the screen. Now, this is quite important as we go ahead. After we do the review the 50002 standards, you will all know that this also is part of the exercise, and we will understand what this standard 55,000 talks about. Now, apart from this, we have another vital part, that is ISO 14001, wherein we have ISO 14064 talking about greenhouse gas emissions. Now we have 64 in here also. There are three parts. Part 1 is organization level. Part 2 is on project level, and part 3 is verification and validation of greenhouse gas statements. So all these three have been specifically mentioned because we all come to know, we all accept that organizational level emissions are different, project level emissions are different. In order to understand these parts, it has been specifically mentioned ISO 14064 part 1, part 2, and evaluation and validation in part 3. Now, if you can understand, carbon or the greenhouse gas emissions are directly linked to the amount of energy that is being consumed in a plant. So considering that, we would also consider discussion on ISO 14064 in particular. Now, of late, many people have been talking about carbon footprint. Now, this is also quite important. Apart from emissions, we also need to understand what is our carbon footprint at the end of the day. Energy savings and energy conservation is one part, but the net carbon footprint that the company can forecast or can project is one vital and very important aspect that we would be discussing. But all these supporting standards, other than the 50,001 support series, we would take one of them at a slot because I would like to waste most of your time discussing in length on these things. We'll just discuss one slot, one standard, and then take up the major part of it so that we spend more time on our core activities. Now, just to understand the updates of what ISO 19011 standard, what it was in 2011 and what it is in 2018. And that is the updated version. I would skip this particular part, section clause 1 to 4, not much of a change. No, if you can see, I have highlighted certain parts of it. If you can see clause 5, managing an energy audit program. Managing an audit program. I would not say, sorry, audit, because it's pertaining to all the audits. Under this, there are various things that have been discussed. Establishing audit program objectives. It was there earlier, it is there here also, but I would like to emphasize more on the objectives part because most of the time, at least as far as I have seen, the client wants an energy audit to be done. And if we don't define the objectives, end of the report day, when we complete the energy audit and submit our reports, they will say why this has not been added or why it has been added. So it calls for a debate. And in order to avoid all those misunderstandings, it is better that we define the total objectives, which will come in the subsequent part of it. Now, we also have to discuss or review what risks and opportunities are. There are quite a number of risks involved in the energy audit, and there are a good number of opportunities that are involved, that are available to us. So, one specific reason why I wanted to talk about this was, whatever recommendations an energy auditor makes are usually dropped because of financial factors involved. So, the risk here is absence of the accounts department or the finance department in the discussions that are being done is a big threat to us, and that is the reason why we would also want those people involved into it. And you can see here on the next one, 5.4.1 talks about roles and responsibilities of individuals managing the audit program. So it is here that we each one of us understand it is my primary responsibility to see that I tell the team of representatives to come and then join the discussions. It is very important because if I don't express myself, the auditee thinks it is not important. So it is my role from here, from my side, as an energy auditor or as an ISO 50001 auditor, to bring them into our discussion forum. Now coming here is a competence. Now here it is our skill, competence of individuals. It is our skill, and this is the entire exercise that we are doing from today onwards is enhancing our competence to cope up to the standards that are required, that we are trying to understand through this series of webinars, so that we become more competent and are ready for any unwanted or unexpected situations. Now, the next part is 5.4.3, talking about extent of audit program. I don't have to elaborate much on this. It is very clear. Earlier in all these things, the 2011 version never discussed much about it. But here it is being discussed in depth. We are also talking about resources. Now, resources means any resource, can be manpower, can be raw material, can be energy resources, or can be any source wherein the entire process is set into motion. Just to quote, even the paper and the pen, pencil, rubber, all those things would also be involved into the part of the energy audit in ISO 50001, because we will ultimately end up into discussing carbon footprint. Now, talking about risks, it has been discussed here. I think once you get the slides, presentation material, you will be able to see. So I would drop this part of it. Now I'm talking more, I would like to emphasize on this part, opportunities. See, when we do energy audit, the 50001 audit, there are people who always say, why do we get into this particular part? It is not part of the energy audit, it comes under safety audit. Now, if energy is consumed in a very healthy way, obviously safety is brought into our culture. At one point of time, especially when I was doing the mines audit, they said, why are we talking about water? We are supposed to be doing energy audit. Why water audit? Why are we discussing about water? See, this also is very important, because if I don't manage the rainwater that hits the surface and it soils the road, especially when during the haulage, the truck consumes extra fuel because it has to overcome the slippery part of it. So here is the catch. If I'm not doing water audit, if I'm not focusing on the water conservation or water management, then ultimately we end up consuming more of fuel in the haulage part. And when we do that, ultimately the party ends up paying more for the fuel cost. So it is in this respect that we have got to identify or discuss at length on this. And here is an opportunity. It is not just we are doing energy audit, we also need to do safety audit. It can be electrical safety, it can be driving habits, or it can even be water audit part of it. Now, the other opportunity is trying to compete, trying to match our level with their part. Some of the managers in the plant, or mostly, or I would say not mostly, are always well qualified. They are well qualified in their stream of activity. And we are well qualified in identifying those defects or the faults or the losses where they incur. Because their focus, the plant engineers' focus is on timely production, keeping the machine ready as much as possible for the production team to work. Whereas energy auditors or ISO 50001 auditor, we need to focus on efficient or conservation of energy so that the machines are always kept upright without actually getting into problems. So these are some of the opportunities that we always have to look up. And I see more business in this, both for the person's auditee and for the auditor. Especially when I give, just to share my own experience, people have always been saying, sir, everybody comes and says, you replace this motor, you do this, you do this. If it comes to question of replacing every component that we have, obviously we know the efficiency will grow up, energy consumption will come down. What we need is some ideas where we can save the energy without actually going in for capital expenses. So this is one key aspect, and here always I tell them, whatever fees we charge you, is always going to be linked to the savings that we can give you. If you can accept it, good. If you do not accept it, then we will demonstrate and show you the savings, and I will take X months of savings from you. So here is an opportunity for us to act as performers so that the members, auditee, feels more confident and initiates the audit program. Now, in the initial discussions, I said ISO 55000. Now, here is one part where managing and maintaining audit program records. When we say records, it also involves the assets, records of each and every machinery. Date of purchase is just for us to understand. Whereas the technical specifications involved, the modifications that have been brought in, the replacements, and what was the task for which it was purchased, what is the task that is being done today. If you can understand, most of the tool room industries have a lot of variation. It has been designed for doing X amount of work, and in reality, we find that we are doing only around 0.2 or 0.3% of what, 0.3 times of what the original machine has been designed for. So when we do all this exercise, these records will help us in commenting or coming to a conclusion in our audit. Now, next part is reviewing and improving audit program. Now, reviewing is one part. We see when we enter into this shop floor, we always find that people are already working on it. Now, we come to a conclusion, okay, this should not be the way, it should have been done in much better way, like this. Let me tell you, we are there just for a day or a week. Those people have been working for weeks together, months together, years together. So they know much better as to what is better for them. So before we make our comments on that, it is important that we talk to those people working on the shop floor, on the field, so that we actually come to some acceptable conclusion. Now, this again is part of it. There's nothing much, not new, but audit activities we all know, but however, it has been very specifically mentioned here and discussed at length. Performing review of documented information, that's what we discussed just now. Then planning, and then assigning the work to audit team and preparing documented information for audit. They give us some information, we need to add certain value to it, and that has already been discussed, has been specifically mentioned in ISO 19011, because earlier it was missing. If you can see, it was only 6.3, nothing was discussed at length. Now it has been specifically mentioned. Now, here is one part, communicating during the audit. It can be prior to audit, it can be during the audit, it can be post-audit. Although it has been mentioned only during audit, I think it is more important that we communicate with the team, with the stakeholders as often as possible, so that we come to some standard conclusions. It's already been discussed. Verifying information. See, sometimes there are some documents which are available to us, but there are some things which actually are missing. So we need to verify and then reconfirm. I'm sorry for a small interruption. Murli?
1 second.
Yeah, can you just mute yourself? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Next is the audit findings. So that, of course, each and every one of us would be doing, but it has been specifically mentioned in the 2018 version of ISO 19011. And then the conclusions and the closing meeting, they have specifically discussed at length on this. I think I already shared this report, which was available with me to you all for you to review. If somebody who has not joined, who is not part of the WhatsApp group, and if you are not having it, kindly send me a note. I think my number is already here at the bottom. You can see this here, 944903355. You can send me a message. I'll immediately send a copy to you, either through WhatsApp or mail, if you send me your email ID. Now here again, I think I would not discuss much, but knowledge and skills has been very clearly mentioned in this part. That is competence and evaluation of auditors. See, earlier there was a clause where anybody could audit and then give a report. Now, I think now with this particular standard, the revision has been very well brought in. Now, if I am doing an audit of a steel plant, then I should understand the process that is involved in doing a steel plant audit. If I am doing the mines, then I need to know the process that is involved in the mines. I need to understand various ways of exploring the iron ore, the mine ore. I should also understand what for it is being put into use, what are the grades that are available, what means can be done, whether it is really required to crush, it is not required to crush, required to screen or not required to screen, whether you need to wash or you don't need to wash. So if you can understand that part of the process, then probably the audit would be much more effective. And that is the reason why we need to know, upgrade our knowledge and skills. I think Murli, your mic is still on. I think the rest of the things are all quite common. There is nothing, not much, but these are some of the key aspects, and that is the core activity of what we are doing today. We are upgrading ourselves as to what we are doing, whether is it in line with ISO 19011. If we can understand the specific requirements of ISO 19011, then probably we would be more competent enough to understand and do the rest of the things. Now coming to the core activity, that's ISO 50002. It is basically nothing but a holistic approach to ISO 50001. See, it basically elaborates a framework for organizational engagement, facility assessment, energy analysis, and planning of measures to reduce energy use. This is what we basically all know about, and there is nothing, not much. ISO 50002 is designed basically in compliance with ISO 50001, but there are some specific steps that have been specifically mentioned in ISO 50002. 50001 is basically one part of it, but 50002 has well-defined specific steps. Of course, you can vary that also. It is not necessary as per me. I don't know whether the ISO standard accepts it or not, but as per me, there is no problem if I see. I'll just show you the list of the steps that have been well laid in ISO 50002 in the subsequent slides. Now here, if you can see proactive client engagement, it's self-explanatory. I don't have to talk much about it. Encourage a focus on energy efficiency barriers, not only technical analysis. So this is quite positive part of it. It is being very well defined in specific. Identify key personnel at the client side and ensure their involvement for developing the audit and recommendations. Now, just as I mentioned in the earlier discussions, it is important that we get involved into the shop floor people. because they are the stakeholders of the entire operations. Any recommendations that we make, it is important that they fall in line with what we are recommending, so that when it is taken up for execution, there is nothing, no objections or inhibitants from their side to execute it. Now, it is also said, follow a structured process for data collection and planning a site visit. This we have discussed earlier. Nothing, I don't have to think we need to elaborate more on this. Optimize time and budget through good data collection planning process. Now, this is quite crucial because everybody today, you all understand that there are people amongst us. I'm not discouraging, or please don't take it the other way. People are ready to work for 2,000 rupees per day. There are people where even 20,000 rupees is less for them. So it is very difficult. And in the subsequent discussions, I will elaborate much on this part of the thing. Now, optimize time and budget through planning, data collection, and ensuring that measurements are performed at the appropriate accuracy. Now, this is where the budgeting shoots up. Appropriate accuracy. Ensuring that measurements are performed at the appropriate accuracy is one barrier or one part which can make the client to go for a higher budget. Now, just as I said, there are various, it has laid down various typical steps. First thing is energy audit planning. We all need to plan for an energy audit. Now, how do we do an energy audit planning? Prior to this, of course, let me just complete this part of what the 50.2 states: opening meeting, data collection, measurement, site visit, analysis, and reporting. Now, as per me, they should have mentioned site visit first and then the rest of the things in order. If I don't do the site visit, probably me as a person, I would say we are good in doing energy audit, but we are not good in each of the process that the plant is involved into. If I get into cement, it has got its own process. If I get into sugar, it has got its own process. Distillery has got its own process. Refinery is different. So we can't generalize the things and then straight away give them an action plan. So I need to, even if you're doing multiple number of cement audits, each of these plants have got their own way of operations. Not necessarily that plant A is in line with plant B. There can be a difference depending on the requirements. So site visit necessarily needs to be put on top, step one, and then followed by this. So when we do these 7 steps, probably most of the discussion would be coming up. Now, functionality and minimum data input requirements. Support the development of an energy audit, including documenting client and facility details. Tools for preparing for on-site data collection tasks. Collection of data to support analysis. Tools for analyzing energy management practices, energy use pattern, and developing an energy balance. Tools for simple analysis of equipment retrofits. Now, if you can read these lines, I have just copied these lines from the standard that has been there. Now, if you can read this, generally documenting client and facility details. It's very simple. We can always say whatever he gives, you can take it and then do it. But documenting from energy consumption point of view is very important. What their document talks about is something different. But what we as energy auditors or 5001 auditors need to be doing is something where we ultimately come down to a low positive carbon footprint impact. Now, there are cases where nothing is available. The machine has been installed decades back and no data is available with them. So in that case, we need to be prepared to build up that data. And this data build up will come only from on-site visit. It cannot be done sitting in a room. So we need to visit the site, collect all the possible data, and then initiate. Now, for example, I'll just tell you some key part of it. Usually over a period of time, the original equipment manufacturer will have recommended some lubricant with some specific parameters. Due to some reason or due to short supply of the main lubricant, the plant engineer or the workshop manager would compromise for a different lubricant. And by practice, it keeps continuing. So this is one part whether we will have to really do a lot of exercise in trying to understand whether this machine has been defined to use this particular lubricant or the plant engineer has changed that particular part. I know this is going to be a tough task, but ISO 50001, looking from that point of view, we will have to work back end to understand what this data is. And when we do this, whatever data we collect, we need to put it before the management saying, sir, you bought this particular equipment and these were the specifications that the original equipment manufacturer had laid. Whereas you are right now working on these particular standards, these particular parameters. These are the areas where you are differing, and this is the reason where we can probably expect that there are some losses. I'll quote an example in the subsequent part of it again here. It might come up. Now, tools for analyzing energy management practices, energy use pattern, and developing of energy balance. Everything is, we all know about energy balance. I don't have to talk much on this. Now, there are some issues which I would discuss at length here. When we say ISO 50002, that we are talking with respect to ISO 50002 or ISO 50001. Now, ISO 50, like I said in our earlier survey, ISO 50001 is just a certification. If you can get it, if we can get our organization certified, yes, we are moving towards profitability. We are moving towards increasing productivity. We are moving towards increasing the safety standards of a plant. However, there are certain parameters where we need to educate the client, or the client needs to get himself educated. I'm using both the words because there are some audience who are not energy auditors but are part of the plant. They are here with us to understand what we are actually talking about and why this standard is more important. And as energy auditors, I need to bring it out to him. And as an auditee, he needs to understand as to what is to be done. There are various risks involved. See, risk is always there in every field, and we as energy auditors, we need to be ready to take the risk. If we are ready to take the risk, then we will be fine-tuned to audit, say ourselves as successful energy auditors. Now, there are many cases where we are forced to go out of focus. When I say out of focus, there are many instances where people say, you need to remove this part. Don't put it in a report because we are answerable to so and so. Yes, there are some cases, but if you accept that part, what happens is, of late, we have seen many cases where the transformer has been burned, boiler has been blown out, plant catches fire. Assume, just a typical case, you assume that, okay, there is a, an accident after the report, after you audit a plant and then submit your report. Now, what would be your stick? Because the plant manager says, you remove this clause and give us a report omitting that part. And if you remove that clause and then give him a report saying everything is fine, okay. And couple of weeks or months after, if there is an occurrence of an incident, the first thing that the plant engineer or the people on the shop floor or the utility would do is they would call you and ask, how did you do your energy audit? How did this point not come to your attention? Did you not make note of this? So it is this part of the risk that we are always forced upon. So there are cases, of course, it is not that it is not happening with me, it is happening with others or something. Whenever I come across a situation like this, what I will be doing is, to be on the safer side, I send them my report much before I go and sit with them for discussion. And this is sent on email. When we sit for discussions, obviously he will say, okay, these are the things. Our objective is, our responsibility is to bring the threats to the knowledge of those people. Knowledge of the people who are involved in these exercises, in getting things done. And we have done our part. He wants that to be removed, accept it, remove it, but you are always on the safer side because the threats have already been communicated to him in the earlier part. So you can always counter their claim or allegation saying that this is not this is what is to be done. And this is one part where we have got to be always focused upon and safeguard our professional ethics and not always accept what is there. Now, the next part is the confidence. There are some cases where people have been saying you are already giving your report, but things are not really materializing. Now, this is quite important part of it. Even the auditee, he himself will also have to look into this part. Energy audit is being done at cost. It is not done free of cost. A holistic approach to energy audit is coming at cost because as energy auditor, at least I as an individual or as a professional, always make it very clear to them that we are not going to sell you any component or any product. We will give you a neutralized opinion. And if you are ready to implement them, good enough. If you want us to execute, supervise, we will supervise. If you want us to execute it, yes, provide the material to us. We will put our manpower, we will hire some skilled people and see that it is implemented. And when we do all this exercise, we are always focused in telling them that, okay, the projected savings are always mentioned. We are going to meet the projected savings. And that is very clearly discussed and mentioned. Now, this brings in high level of competence in us. Of course, the next part is the enterprise. See, the client also needs to be a daredevil because nothing goes from my side, just putting a pen and paper and saying you need to spend on this. Because ultimately the capital expenses are on his side. But if you can get lucky enough to get a client who is ready to invest lakhs of rupees on the recommendations, then there is nothing like that. Now, next comes the cost competence. Here, like I said, the client always wants the best of the audit. Now, someone with a bare 2,000 rupees perform the kind of audit that the client wants it. Now, here there are a couple of issues. One is people want compliance audit. People want energy savings audit. That means you tell us where all the things are, we will execute for you. There are some audits which are linked to performance. Now, I'll just quote a typical example. In one of the cases, I had quoted around 12 lakh rupees. My competitor had quoted 2 lakh rupees. There was a difference of nearly around 9.5 to 10 lakh rupees in the proposal. Now, although I had given a breakup, the net, ultimately the purchase department said he has quoted 2 lakhs, he has quoted 12 lakhs. So it is better we go for a person who has done 2 lakh, who has quoted 2 lakhs because the cost difference is too high. But subsequently, I realized they have done energy audit only for a transformer and not in the plant. So we need to understand actually their scope. As energy auditors or as 50001 auditor, we have to clearly understand what is the scope of the audit. Because they themselves do not know what it is. They just want an audit to be done, and me sitting thousands of kilometers away from the site, I will only quote based on the information that he sends it across to me. He sends me list of 1,000 machines. So considering that, and of course various 4-5 transformers and other utilities. So considering the time involved, I then quote him that particular X amount of price. So it is very important that we understand the scope and make it more cost competitive. Next comes this part of it, intellectual property. There are some equal number of cases where people have been telling me for the same audit, he is ready to do for less than what you are quoting. Now, there is always an intellectual property. Energy audit is not just an energy audit. It has a lot of intellectual property involved in it. So it is important that auditee understands who can give them the better savings. Even if I am charging them 5 lakh rupees, in how many days am I going to return back that 5 lakh rupees by virtue of savings? Most of the energy audits, private energy audits, of course, have been won only based on this part. If my competitor is charging 2 lakh rupees, I say I don't have any objection. But one thing is for sure, if I'm charging you 5 lakhs or 12 lakhs, my return on your investment for my energy audit assignment is so many number of days or so many number of months. So this intellectual property brings in a lot of confidence and establishes our competence level. Now there are some cases, thought process. In many of the cases where I have involved myself, I was there as an energy auditor. I was involved as an energy auditor, but ended up myself to be a process auditor. And this explores a lot of opportunities for each one of us. It is not that I go with a preconceived idea and then make a report. I always shout out all the recommendations or all the things. I go there as a layman. And this is quite important because we will start understanding the process that they are involved into. I must have done a lot of mining audits. But when I visit another mining industry, it is again a different approach altogether. It is not the same grade of mine ore that is being extracted. I start off with geographical conditions, elevation, haulage distance. There are so many other parameters which are involved. So we always need to understand this exercise so that when we give our report, it always focuses in building up a client to meet the ISO 50001 standard requirements. Of course, we are going to be discussing at length the subsequent standards. I'll show you what are those in the next one. But it is important that we always go through that particular part. Now, next part is the vision. We all need to look from our past experiences. That is, the more we know that as and when you keep getting into energy audit assignments, you feel as if you never knew this part. So it is a learning lesson for every assignment for us. And I'm happy that I'm able to share some of my information with you. It is just learning by sharing what I know. Now here, in fact, I would like to open up as, like I said in the beginning, spot poll. I have mentioned this. This is quite important for us because, like I said, we need to have more of interactive session. Of course, the first two sessions are not having some limitations because it is available to us on a concessional payment. But once the full payment is made, then we will be able to pull in 4 or 5, I think it is 6 panel members, where each one of us would be able to discuss, and the attendees can also raise their questions through voice. Here it is only at a later date, once we open up the floor for voice level, and it is also again based on request. But once we do this, it is going to be open, some sort of a closed room discussion as such. So here I have just posted a poll. I would request each one of you, I don't know, I'm not sure, we have not tried this. You should be able to get some sort of a screen on your thing, and you need to kindly select your option there. The first one is, are you able to see the screen? Are you able to see the screen? I'm just opening up one of your thing. If you can kindly write. Are you able to see the screen, please?
Yeah, if you press the poll, and people should see the screen as a polling. But I'm an attendee, I'm as a host, I'm not able to see that. I can only see the numbers. Request everybody, have seen the this one?
Yeah. No, I think it is available. Are you comfortable with the webinar jam? Kindly respond either yes or no. Oh, everybody is able to say yes. Good. Thank you. Now, the next one would be, so one, was the audio clear and uninterrupted? Okay, 94% of you have said yes. I think one more, 99. Okay. The next part is, how was the video quality? How was the video quality of the presentation, the screen presentation, everything? Wow. Six people, 6% of the people have said visible but with interruptions. 90% say it is quite good. Okay, I think the next one is, how was the video quality? Initially, I think myself and Murli, our secretary IAMP, had come up with a video, live video. So how do you think that was available to you? I think I'll now open up my camera. Are you able to see me? Of course, it is dark because the light is from the back side. I think the poll is open now. Is the video quality good? Wow.
If I publish a video, I think they may able to do it. Whatever we did the trial,
can I do it again? See that. No, not required. The camera is coming up. My camera is there.
Okay, right. Okay, right.
Okay, around 70 to 80% of the people have been saying good. Some are saying bad. Of course, it is also connected to the internet speed that we are having. Okay, and this is what basically we had discussed. Now, just to go off the thing before I open up the floor for you to ask questions, or before we take question and answers from the chat, the next webinar is coming up. This is not related to ISO 50002. This would be hosted jointly, of course, with Ashray Chandigarh and IEMP. The topic is very relevant to us, but I'm just trying to tell you why this topic has been posted here for us. See, I, as an energy auditor, would like to know what a client or what my client needs to understand, needs to perform under. And I as an energy auditor, can I do that particular task? So this is again basically know my workspace environment. We are all sitting in AC, air conditioned rooms, and we know what things are happening. So here, if I can understand what my client wants, or if I can educate myself, if I can educate the client as to what sort of an air conditioning environment he is sitting in, then probably he will certainly call us for an energy audit. Point number one is he needs to be aware that he is not sitting in a comfortable zone. He might be sitting in a low temperature room, but he may not, his quality of air that he breathes may not be in line with what is actually required. Dust particulate count in the room might be different. He might say, yes, I'm comfortable, but actually, when we look into the present day situation, especially thanks to COVID-19, where this topic of indoor air quality audit has a lot of prominence, and that is the reason why we are coming up with this. And I see this particular topic as an opener for all the energy auditors, and it would be important that we understand that. Now, subsequent to this, in the last slide, I think we discussed on this part. I would drop this particular because we had already discussed in the first session. Now, the next one that is coming up is 50002. We already had a discussion today. We would be going in with ISO 50003, that is requirements for bodies providing audit and certification of energy management systems. 50004, that is guidance for the implementation, maintenance, improvement. 50005, modular implementation. You see, there was a case, many of us have been saying, sir, he only wants a compressor room to be defined for ISO 50001. Yes, he has an option to do that, and he has every right to claim for it, because he feels compressor is the major energy consumption for him, and rest of the things may not be considered for 50001. Yes. So that option is already defined in this 50005, so that we are ready for discussions on that. 50006 is talking about measuring energy performance. Now, this is the reason why I said the range of instruments that each one of us have will decide on the competency level that we are talking about. So 50006 talks very specifically about that part, and all the measuring instruments that we are going to be using should meet those required standards. And that is, I think, reason where Sonel or Zenitza or Testo or whoever is involved into these particular supply instruments would be playing a vital role in this part. Now, 50007 is energy services. Now, like I said, there are certain cases where a client poses a threat to us saying that we don't give a factual report, or we don't give a report or recommendations which are really implementable. Now, here is an opportunity for all of us to really take it up and then show it to them that yes, it is really possible. And that is in 50007. Now, 50008 is talking about energy management and energy savings. And this is more specific to building data. That is a civil, I mean, ECBC, it comes more, I would say more under ECBC. Now, 50,009 is guidance for multiple organizations. Say, suppose if I am a principal entity, my supply chain may also be asked to go for a ISO 50001 audit. Or my principal, whom I am supplying, he might be a ISO 50001 sub-compliant. To match myself, to match his requirement, I may have to go for an ISO 50001 compliance. So in order, when we do this exercise, either I need to take certain inputs from the agency from the company to whom I am supplying, or I will have to share my information with the company from whom I am buying my requirements, my services. So it is all the guidelines here mentioned in this. Now coming to ISO 50015, I have already put it in our survey. Now this particular part has been more or less taken from M&V. That is measurement and verification. In the past discussions, we all discussed about, I think, monitoring and verification. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Now here, measurement and verification is very crucial, and this plays a very important role. And here we need to discuss at length. Now, if I can go through if I can reveal here, the M&V has been picked up. The standard has been picked up from one of the manuals, and the content there runs somewhere around 800 to 900 pages. Now, I'm not talking about the number of pages that are involved. I have also gone through the details, every component of it. Data maintenance, what we discussed about right now, that is what comes under 55,000. Cleaning up site data, evaluating every machine that is involved on the site, be it a small illuminator lighting, or be it a piece of paper being used, or a major fuel or energy that is being used for various applications. Motors, compressors, furnace, boiler, everything has been discussed here. So it is nothing less than what an energy auditor or a certified energy auditor has gone through. We will be reviewing more or less every aspect of this particular part, but focused towards ISO 50001. Our focus on getting ourselves through with BE exam was 50% qualifying mark and trying to understand the rest of the things. But here, 50,015 would be more or less discussing much on the individual parts focused with 50,001. Now coming to 50,047, which is highly debatable. Like I said, energy savings has been very disputed. I mean, management says you recommend, but it doesn't end up. Now, to avoid such confrontations or disputes, we have 50,047, where it is again very clearly mentioned. And this is the reason where we can safeguard ourselves, and our competence plays a very important role when we comply to ISO 50,047. Now, in the starting slides, I already said, okay, 14,067 and 64, I would not repeat that here again. I think with this, we would be coming to the end of the session. I would now open up to questions and answers. Before I open up voice, let me just go through the chats. There are a couple of number of questions here. Now, before I take up the chat section, the questions, I again thank ISHRAE, ASHRAE and IAMP for giving the responsibility and task to me to conduct this webinar. Without their support, probably it would not have been very active. Of course, I can understand the number of attendees, not much compared to what it was in our first one, because the market has opened up and everybody is quite comfortable in doing their tasks. Looking at the chat, Okay, participant, yes, that is not a technical part. We will open up the speech part of it. Okay, not getting any feedback. Yes, because there are only two of us right now, and this is a learning session for us to host the website, the webinar. It will be opening up. There is an option, but because there are limitations to only two panel members, there is a restriction for us. But yes, it is opening. Okay. Somebody has asked a question. Who will supply the measuring instruments for the audit? Yes, you will have to have your own measuring instruments. No one can supply you those instruments. Either you'll have to rent them from the agency or you'll have to buy those instruments. I think bank loan should be there to buy those things. Well, some very rightly said, ISO 19011 is a supporting standard for ISO 50001, not for carrying energy audit or its process. Am I correct? Yes, you are very much correct. See, ISO 19011 is the supporting standard for all the ISO standards, whether you take 9001, 14,000, 50,000, 27 or 55 or 45,000, whatever standard you take, each one has to have 19,001 as the baseline. Now, I only touched upon 19,011 because it talks about the competency level of an auditor. If I am doing energy audit, if I am looking at 50,001 audit compliance, then I need to understand what 19,011 is talking about. And that is the reason why we discussed about this. These are the basics. There's nothing like we discussed at length. Of course, 1911, I think somewhere around, it runs nearly 50 to 70 pages of information. I only touched upon the comparison to emphasize as to how it has brought out a major change so that each of the energy auditor has a major role to play in getting an establishment ISO 50001 certification. Like I already said,